This wasn't just a tough exchange, it was a searing indictment of leadership. Senator Chris Van Hollen took direct aim at FBI Director Kash Patel, accusing him of violating DOJ policy and possibly the very principle of due process.
Senator Merkley raised on the Constitution because, as you know, in response to a question that the president was asked about whether he had to comply with the Constitution, he said, and I'm quoting, "I don't know." So it is important that we reaffirm everybody's obligation to comply with the Constitution, and I appreciate that was your answer broadly to the question asked by Senator Merkley. But you don't dispute the fact, and I'm quoting here from the Supreme Court opinion in Reno v. Flores, where Justice Scalia wrote, and I quote, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings," end of quote. You don't dispute that?
I don't dispute that.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, for the record, we understand that because, as you well know, the federal courts have found that there have been gross violations to date of many individuals' due process rights. Let me ask you a question about Judge Dugan, and I'm not going to get into about Judge Dugan, who was arrested, taken out in handcuffs from her courtroom. You agree that as director of the FBI, you should lead by example, right?
Try to.
Okay. Well, there's a confidentiality and media contacts policy within the Department of Justice guidelines that says specifically that DOJ personnel should not voluntarily disclose a photograph of a defendant unless it serves a law enforcement function or unless the photograph is already part of the public record in the case. Clearly, Judge Dugan's photograph was not already part of the public record in the case. So it appears that what you did was a violation of that policy, unless you can express a clear law enforcement purpose for having done that.
The simple law enforcement purpose is to show America that we investigate any individual who commits a crime, especially those in positions of public trust.
But do you agree with the presumption of innocence in the U.S. system?
Absolutely. As a public defender, that's what I fought for years. Well, but that's different than this.
But Mr. Director, this is one of the reasons why that guideline is there, so people, especially the director of the FBI, doesn't announce to the country that somebody's already been found criminally liable when they haven't. She hasn't, has she?
But that's not what we said, that she was criminally liable. We said she was arrested and showed it.
Yeah, we know she was arrested, but the issue is the photograph. I'm asking you, going forward, I hope as the leader of the FBI, you will comply with the guidelines of the FBI that everybody else is expected to follow.
I believe I have, and I will going forward.
Well, this seems like a direct violation of this guideline.
I guess we're in disagreement, Senator.
Well, unless you can tell me why that really serves a law enforcement function. So you're going to send out pictures of everybody that's arrested?
Lots of people that are arrested have pictures sent out.
I'm asking you as director of the FBI, is that going to be your policy, just to start sending?
No, we do it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. Well, the guidelines make clear that I think any normal interpretation of this suggests it's a violation. Look, we're a budget committee, an appropriations committee. We want to find a way to make sure that we properly resource the men and women who work at the FBI. I think that is a common goal, I hope. And I do, just, Mr. Chairman, again, in closing, I understand you want to proceed, just so that we keep things going, but it is kind of hard to proceed without any budget. So
I don't take you as critiquing our having a hearing.
No,
you're pleased to have a hearing, and I wish we had more to deal with than we do.
I do.
And
Senator Chris Van Hollen didn't hold back, and this wasn't just about a photo. This was about the rule of law, due process, and the dangerous power of perception. In this tense exchange, Van Hollen calls out FBI Director Kash Patel for something that should alarm every American, tweeting out a photo of a sitting Wisconsin judge being perp-walked in handcuffs, before trial, before any conviction, and with no stated law enforcement purpose. That tweet wasn't just a publicity stunt. It was a message. And Van Hollen understood exactly what that message was: guilt by optics. The FBI isn't supposed to be in the business of humiliating people for clicks or political points. It's supposed to investigate and prosecute based on facts, not post images that frame someone as guilty before they've even had their day in court. And make no mistake, the rules are crystal clear. The Department of Justice has internal guidelines that explicitly prohibit this kind of thing. DOJ officials are not supposed to release photos of people arrested, especially not in high-profile, politically sensitive cases, unless it serves a clear law enforcement function or the photo is already part of the public record. Neither was true in this case. Director Patel's defense? That he wanted to show America the FBI is serious about accountability. But that's not a law enforcement function. That's PR. That's messaging. And when the person you're trying to send a message with is a judge sitting in a courtroom, forcibly removed and displayed to the public like a warning, then you're not upholding justice. You're undermining it. Even worse, Patel tries to claim he's standing for the presumption of innocence, as if tweeting out that image doesn't violently clash with that very principle. But Van Hollen is laser-focused. He presses him again and again. Is this going to be your policy now? To tweet out photos of people arrested in public office, no matter the circumstance? And Patel admits, it's case by case. Which basically means, yes, whenever it's politically useful. That's terrifying, because once the FBI's top leadership starts playing favorites with the rules, deciding who gets smeared and who gets shielded, what you're looking at is not law enforcement anymore. It's selective prosecution with a camera. Van Hollen closes by reminding us what this hearing was supposed to be about: resources, budget, structure. But how can Congress do its job? How can the American people trust this agency when its own director is defying internal policy and dodging basic constitutional values? The problem here isn't just one tweet. It's the erosion of norms, the silence on standards, and the normalization of spectacle over substance. This moment wasn't just about Judge Dugan. It was about every American who believes in due process, in fairness, and in equal treatment under the law. And if the FBI director can't follow his own rules, why should anyone else? If you believe due process isn't optional, if you believe law enforcement should follow the law themselves, then now's the time to speak up. Subscribe to stay informed, share this to keep the pressure on, and let us know in the comments, should the FBI director be held accountable for violating DOJ rules?